Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LTH product briefing. I'm here today with Josie Kenny of Litera. Josie is the Director of Client Value and Innovation. And we are here today to speak about Kira, a product that recent adoption studies run by Skills as well as Legal Tech Hub have indicated is one of the most highly entrenched, highly adopted products in the legal tech market broadly. Josie, tell us a little bit about how Kira has evolved in the years since the acquisition by Litera, and especially in light of generative AI.
So as many of the people watching this will know, Kira's been committed to helping lawyers solve challenges with reviewing contracts for a long time now, and that hasn't changed. But of course, the technology and the opportunities with generative AI has really allowed us to do even more with that. So we always say that Kira really adapts alongside the lawyers. So if the workflows are changing and what people need from contract review tools changes, then Kira adapts alongside that. So we've brought in generative AI into Kira very intentionally. So very much layering it, as you'll see, on top of kind of Kira's existing features and workflows. So taking our machine learning models, allowing LLMs to summarize those, and providing sort of chat functionality to allow people to ask on the spot questions and get answers to those so we can immediately feedback to the client. But always kind of coming back to some of the core workflows, always having the documents front and center, all those sorts of things that Kira is known and trusted for in terms of verifiability and AI and accuracy too.
Fantastic. Well, as someone who used to use Kira in its former iteration, I'm really excited to get a bit of an update. So let's jump in and take a look.
Great, so we'll just do a quick walkthrough of Kira today, but you'll see that at its heart, Kira is still working effectively to automatically identify, extract, and summarize those key concepts and data points that exist in contracts, but also other documents. It still has that sort of unparalleled accuracy and all of the efficiency that the lawyers need as they're doing that AI contract review. So taking a look at Kira here, what you'll see in this project is I've already uploaded some documents into Kira for review. In this project dashboard, what you're seeing is that Kira has already classified those documents for me. It's identified documents that may be of poor OCR quality, and I can also see duplicate contracts in there as well. So as we start off with the project, we're doing that triage of what's in the data room. I can see where there are duplicates of one another, as well as anything that maybe is a poor PDF scan. Importantly, if I'm bringing documents in from the data room, Kira will also allow me to say, I don't want to bring duplicates in, so I can manage kind of new uploads and the constantly updating data room, which is usually the case when lawyers are working through. The other sort of classifications that can be useful here when Kira's taken a look at the documents on import is the classifications by type and then also by language. So you can see here classifications, and this is an enhancement, perhaps since you last used it, Nikki, but real estate agreement here, but also specifically, is this a sublease? Is this a lease termination agreement? All of these you can click into. If I've got a real estate specialist, I can start assigning that document out. And then similarly with language. So Kira is going to classify the language of the contracts. Importantly, if I see that there's 2 French contracts, I can maybe tag those just to let everyone know that that was maybe out of scope for the purposes of this contract review. So all sort of useful to triage those documents in the first instance, understand what you're working with, understand who you need to involve before you kick off the review in substance. The final piece of that I think is useful for you to see is groupings of documents. So it is typical in a data room that there may be some contracts that are related. I can ask Kira to suggest related groupings of contracts, and those will appear here. So I can see here, for example, that I have this credit agreement. I see the sort of parties, the date, the preamble, and I can see that there's also amendments to that same credit agreement that exist. So if these contracts are buried in separate folders, Kira is using its machine learning actually in this instance to comb through all of those documents and suggest that these actually might be part of a related group. So one person isn't reviewing the master credit agreement, someone else is reviewing the amendments and not pulling that review together. And whilst we've had the machine do that review and analyze whether they're part of the same group, the workflow pieces, as I said in the intro, also sit alongside. So if I was to assign this contract out to someone, Kira's going to helpfully tell me, oh, you might want to also assign the documents that are part of the same group as well. So all helpful to just work out who should be reviewing what, using that machine learning alongside some of the workflow components to triage those documents. And I want to just touch on, as you say, on the machine learning models. As many people will know, Kira is trained to recognize over 1,400 different provisions. So as we think about how Kira helps with the review, what I'm showing you here is the setup. So what users do is they come in and they tell Kira what they want to find. And these machine learning models are still the best and most accurate thing, as you say, in the market in terms of finding those key clauses and concepts. So a user can come into our smart field library, add a series of different concepts, and that expands beyond M&A due diligence. So if they're doing a lease review, they can specifically pick machine learning models for that purpose, maybe for an employment review, and so on. Otherwise, perhaps we can take a look at some of the documents and see how Kira helps with the review. So opening up the kind of document viewer here, which in many ways is the heart of Kira, we can take a look at the supply agreement. So the document on the left-hand side, Kira has OCR'd, and then on the right-hand side, we have all of the extractions that Kira has done based on that worksheet we set up that had those machine learning models, what we call our smart fields, on there. As with everything in Kira, you are the sort of ultimate owner of the output. So if you want to make any edits to any extractions, you can do so. And you can sort of take a look through and see what Kira has found. And this is where we've layered on top the GenAI pieces. So we always had the ability to add your own summary of the extraction. You know the client, you know the transaction. But if you want a starting point, you can generate a summary using our smart summaries feature, and that will use generative AI to do that. So like I said, it's pointing the LLM at the extraction, so you know it's accurate, and then it will say that it's been generated by AI. Same sort of principle. If I want to make any changes, I think this has been over-inclusive, I can edit it and it will update to say it's been edited by me.
And Josie, these AI features, they can be switched on or off depending on the firm's appetite for this, right?
Exactly right. So in the project settings, you'll see in each instance you can enable the generative AI on or off depending on client appetite, as you say.
Thank you. And just a question about the worksheet. So in addition to the 1,400 pre-trained clauses, which is phenomenal, are these effectively templatized sets of suggested or recommended clause extractions depending on workflow or document type?
Yeah, so firms have two options. So they can sort of build out their own organization's templates. So it is typical that each firm has their sort of specific way that they like to do things. And most teams will have a precedent. So you can set those up for your firm and have people select from those here. And we've also made some suggestions in terms of Kira built-in templates. So we kind of call these starting points. If you want something you've maybe never used Kira before and you're doing an M&A diligence review, you can pick from our starting point there as well, if that's helpful.
Fantastic. And as you're reviewing in one of those workflows, are you able to ask Kira to identify red flags, for example?
Yeah, we still very much leave that kind of analysis to the lawyers. We will always surface things that we know to be risky often. So your kind of change of control and assignment. But something like a change of control, whether that's, an issue in the context of the transaction is going to depend on the transaction structure. So we always look at these things and we always want to be accurate, but also leave the lawyers involved where it makes sense for them to be, where they can be most accurate in making a determination. And what you'll see if we go into the supply agreement is the lawyers can add a red flag. If they see something, they know a party's of particular concern or something else, they're able to add that red flag, but it's not something that Kira makes a determination on. And if I just scroll through, just to highlight a few other sort of features that exist that will expedite that review, we also allow for Kira to compare extractions. So if you have an assignment provision, say in a supply agreement, I can see here that there are 3 other assignment provisions that are exactly the same. So instead of me having to comb through and eventually find that these are the same to do the same analysis, I can select all of these and maybe add that same summary across all of them. Or as you say, if it's a red flag and I want that review to be consistent, I can make sure that those are red flagged across all of them. The extra piece of this is just being able to adjust the similarity percentage here. So I can also see ones that are a little bit similar, but maybe not exactly the same. This is another important piece if we think about what's a red flag. One word here or there missing might change the meaning completely. which is why we surface the red line here. So it's not just the percentage, but also you can see the change, and then maybe you can tag or flag that as you need to, depending on how that compares to the other assignment provisions.
That's very cool.
Jumping out, I want to also show you the ability to chat with Kira. So if at any time you have a key question that you want to ask Kira, you can simply ask that in the chat and Kira will provide you with a response. Where we've seen this be really neat is expanding out document types. So something like board minutes or foreign language contracts, maybe there isn't a smart field, but you want to just get a quick sense of, are there any key risks in that? That's a perfect use case for chat. Something like, can the supplier terminate for convenience? It will give me an answer, and I can see that Fresenius is not defined as the supplier, but that's where the Gen AI is fantastic at understanding kind of the context and will give an answer, always with the source for the answer as well, which Kira will highlight. So lots of opportunities, I think, when you think about the ability to chat with Kira too. And then once you're done with the review, you can mark the document as reviewed, move to the next document, do the same thing. And then, of course, at the end, you can select all of the contracts and produce that report. Lots of options here in terms of the report you might want to produce, different formats and different kind of options in terms of what you may want to include. Or otherwise, we've seen people take this data out of Kira into other tools as well. So Kira has an open API. So we've seen people connect it out to other systems and provide kind of client portals showing some of this data too.
Great. And throughout the entire experience, of course, Kira is fully collaborative, allowing for tasks to be assigned and teams to work together, which is one of the great selling points of that UI and interface.
Exactly right.
That's great. Well, Josie, thank you so much for showing us. It's great to see the way that Kira has layered in the generative AI in a way that's really meaningful and helpful. If people want to learn more about Kira, where should they go?
Yeah, if you go to the Litera website, you'll find all the information you need about Kira on there.
Okay. We will add a URL that helps you easily get to that website at the bottom of the page. Josie, thank you so much for joining us and for showing everyone. And it's great to see Kira continuing to develop at pace.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching. See you next time.